have to call you
in a minute.
in a minute.
See if you can come in. Hello, everybody. This is Stephen Williams. 15 minutes behind our schedule. We ran into some technical difficulties. And this is Stephen Williams. And so welcome tonight to our podcast, Behind the Veil. I appreciate you allowing me to come into your space to call me the good bishop. Listen, we ran into some show enough challenges. And so tonight, my guests, we're trying to pull them in to our Facebook into our conversation, and because it just would not work. So you may be able to hear her, but you definitely won't be able to see her at this point in time. We're trying to do everything that we can possibly do to get her to come in. She's going to try to do it. But before we even do that, y'all know how we do. Again, thank you so much. We're going to do one song, our song of the week, and then we're going to get to our very, 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 very special guest. Y'all ain't going to believe it when I talk to you about it. We doing a couple of things, honey. We on Zoom and we on live. This is bananas. This is bananas. And so here's a tune. Y'all ain't gonna believe it. So here's a tune that I've been working on in the cave. It's what I call the cave. So that's been in the house. And this is all me again. And this is something that I don't even think it's coming out yet. Nothing like that. It's just one of those tunes. And this is for our song of the week, so that we can talk about it. I want you to have confidence. Keep your confidence in God through all of this stuff that's going on with the pandemic, and watch him bring you through. Don't leave, because this is going to be a powerful conversation tonight when we figure this out about the HBCU. All right, here we go. We getting ready to run. This is me, all in the house. Background, whole 9 yards.
I have my confidence in you, Lord. No matter what is going on, I have my confidence in you, Lord.
This is my Fred Hammond jam.
Able to do exceedingly and abundantly. Come on, let's give him glory right here. Oh Lord, I will give you praise for all the world to see. You are my Lord, you Lord. Good things come from thee. You're my protection, and in trouble you're my safety. Oh Lord, you are my Lord, my Lord. I'll serve you with all of me. Your name is excellent, and it carries victory. You are my Lord, you Lord. In you I'm complete. My greatest pleasure is to serve you faithfully. And you are my Lord, and you're everything I need. To all of those who seek another God for their help, they don't realize they bring trouble to themselves. I will not take part in any of their sacrifice. You're the only God I'll serve, and that's my right. You, Lord, are all I have, and you have what I need. My future's in your hand. Your word is my seed. My hope's in you, Lord, and you are my guide. You are my dwelling place. In you I'll hide. Oh Lord, I will give you praise for all the world to see. Come on. You are my Lord, my Lord. All the things come from thee. You're my protection, and in trouble you're my safety. Oh, you are my Lord, yeah, I'll serve you with all of me. Your name is excellent, and it carries victory. Oh yeah, you are my Lord, and in you I'm complete. My greatest pleasure is to serve you faithfully. You are my Lord, and you're everything I need. Oh, my confidence is in you, Lord. Confidence is in you, Lord. I know that you are able to do all things. Confidence is in you, Lord. There's nothing too hard for my God. My confidence is in you, Lord. You can move to the left or to the right. My confidence and give me victory. My confidence is in you, Lord. My confidence trust your name in every situation. Lord, my confidence is in you, Lord. My confidence is in you, Lord. Hey, oh Lord, I will give you praise for all the world to see. You are my Lord, and in you I'm complete. My greatest pleasure is to serve you faithfully. You are my Lord, yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything I need. Everything I
need. That's the new song. Listen, make sure you keep your confidence in Him. God is so awesome, and so y'all just stay focused and all this good stuff. Hey there, good Gloria, I'm glad. Listen, it is so crazy. Val and I can see each other, but you can't see Val. We trying to pull her in, but we haven't been able to pull her in as of yet. And we were trying to figure this thing out. And so I'm going to ask her to just say something real quick to see if y'all can hear her. So say something, Val. Say something.
Hello, everyone.
I wonder, can y'all hear her? Make sure y'all can hear her. Somebody let me know. She probably like, what kind of podcast is this? It's the one where when stuff don't work out, you got to keep on moving. It's the one. It's the one where we just got to do what we got to do to get her in. You cannot see her, but you can hear her. Excellent. Well, we can't see you, but y'all, she is. She's on here. She is absolutely. She was absolutely excited. I wanted to show her off, and such a beautiful lady. And but we just gonna have a sit down conversation about this whole notion of what's going on. And what I'm doing now is making sure I have all of her particulars, because I am excited tonight not only to have she is like my sister. She's like a sister-in-law, but she's more like a sister than she is a sister-in-law. Every time we get together and we talk, listen, when I tell y'all when I show y'all her and talk to you about her bio, you're going to be like, what haven't this lady done in her whole lifetime? And she is so awesome. And I'm so happy to have Miss Valerie Melton on the phone or on the line with us. My stuff is just jacked up all the way around. And we were prepared tonight. We were on early and ready and willing and able. And here it is. I can't even get your bio. I can't even get to your bio, but we can read it before it's over. I'm going to let everybody know exactly all of the credentials. Let me tell you, she is an assistant. She is a vice president of a university. Give me the college again, the university.
Can you hear me?
Yes, they can hear you. Okay. And so she is she's raised more than $25 million, y'all, from working with HBCUs. She is a fundraiser extraordinaire. She's done something. She's graduated from an HBCU. Is that good? She's got her master's, and now she's working on her doctorate. She is totally certified in every area that you can think of in fundraising. She is pressing forward to be, I think one day she want to be a president of a college or something like that. She gonna run her own show, and I'm going to be over her sponsor program's office when she get her college, because that's about all I know how to do. I can help them with the grants. And so I want you all to receive this wonderful young lady. Valerie, how are you doing? And thank you for your patience. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing wonderful. I am so excited to be with you this evening, despite the technical difficulties we're having.
It's the devil.
I'm looking for I'm looking forward to a very well versed conversation about HBCUs and the pandemic. So it ain't about, you don't really have to see me. I just need you to hear me. So
Well,
long as you can hear me, that's the most important thing this evening.
well, as long as you all can hear her, that's
Yeah.
really what's important. And I got her jacked all the way up in the volume just to make sure. Listen, I want to start this off by saying both of us are products from the HBCU, and we both. I'm going to speak for myself. That experience with the HBCU was absolutely wonderful. It was absolutely life changing. It was the area that I developed the most in, and so when I started talking about this particular subject matter, being in an HBCU, coming from an HBCU, it really helps my heart that I really wanted to talk about this and make sure that we were having some good conversations about a place that helped develop and grow me into the man that I am, good, bad, and or indifferent. And so, can you tell us about your experience coming from the HBCU? What was that like in your day?
Absolutely. I think going to North Carolina A&T State University changed my life and the trajectory of my life. Being the first out of my family to attend a 4-year college, and my parents not being educated and having to navigate through that process was probably one of the best things that I have done. And when I got to A&T, it was definitely a transformation in my life, coming from a very small town. A&T, I met so many wonderful people the 4 years that I was there, just the things that I learned about our people, about our history, um, just how I developed, as you just stated, as a woman, the relationships that I still have, through pledging Delta, becoming a part of a sorority and a sisterhood, that's all over the world. I think that it changed my life, and I tell you, and I'm very passionate about it. So as you talked briefly about my resume, a lot of that has to do with my passion for HBCUs and having worked in this space now for almost 17 years. It's been about the experience and the opportunity that it gave me to grow and to develop as a woman and as a professional. And then the opportunity to go back and work in this space has been that much more rewarding. So when I think about those 4 years at A&T, it's just it was an incredible ride, and again, something that just completely changed my life.
Now we now we're gonna have a little fun because I'm from SU. We were kind of at school, kind of at the same time, and I remember those football games and basketball games and the rivalry. Now y'all kicking out tail right now, but back in my day, doggone it, we used to get y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to give it to Winston. And I worked at your alma mater.
Right.
So when you look at my resume, a part of my movement and my journey at HBCUs was a stop at Winston-Salem State, where the
Yeah.
legendary Bill Hayes,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
my boss at the time when I was there. So we talking about a legacy of winning. We talking about a winning time when I was at Winston-Salem State. Y'all football team. We had a program that I launched called Return to Glory.
Yes.
You win.
Yeah.
That was a fundraising campaign that I
You
set
were
up.
part of the Division Two when we were going to the state. No, I'm going to the nationals, right? Weren't you there then?
Yeah, I was actually, when I came to Winston-Salem State in 2008, you all were on the path to going to Division One. You were
Division
still
One,
in.
right? You're
And
right.
so, yeah, so during my time there, it actually, there was a decision that was made to come back into the CIAA, back to Division Two. But on your way to the MEAC, you didn't quite get there.
We didn't
You
quite get
started the
there.
journey, but you were there for some years, moving toward, going into the MEAC. But yeah, when you went back into Division Two, I mean, it was definitely a return to glory. It was wonderful, just the winning. You had a winning coach. You had a legendary coach to come back, Coach Hayes,
Yeah.
alumni were engaged. It was incredible. It was like, just really old times at the university at Winston-Salem State. So yeah, I have to give you that. Y'all did you kind of you had some winning back in the 80s.
Ain't nothing we can say about it right now. So I don't even want to talk about it.
Absolutely. But I have to say this. So while I was at Winston, I did have an opportunity to we had it was called the Battle of the Border. It was sponsored by
Okay.
Time Warner, and it was when A&T and Winston-Salem State met, for a game, and that hadn't been done in a while.
It hadn't been done in a while.
It hadn't
Yeah.
been done in a while,
Yeah.
so that was a really big deal, So absolutely.
So since we done already jacked up all the stuff that we were supposed to be planning to do tonight, tell me, let's talk about the HBCU. You have been working in it. It is a part of your passion. I want you to kind of talk to our audiences about the effects of the pandemic. What's going on with our HBCUs? We saw just recently that UNC is going to an online format because of the pandemic. But I want to be more specific about the possibilities and what do you feel? Now, we open this up tonight. This is not one HBCU or another. We're not really talking about any one thing. We're talking about the institution of the historically black college and the experience that we're having, and we want to talk about it because we're products from it, and it really means a lot to us to be able to do it. So talk to us.
Yeah.
Where do you see it, and how do you see it from where you are, from your vantage point?
Absolutely. I would love to talk about that. But before I get into that, let me say thank you for the opportunity to have this platform and that you are thinking along these lines. We need more conversations like these to be had around all of our HBCUs in terms of making sure, that we fully understand what's happening at our institutions and how the pandemic is affecting our institutions, because there's so many things going on right now in the world. So we've got to make sure that our HBCUs stay at the forefront of our minds and what we need to do to make sure that they remain sustainable. Because
Yes.
that's really what's important. Long before the pandemic, hit, there's been a lot of conversations about over the years, last 10 years, talking about the sustainability of HBCUs and whether or not, they could survive in the future and what it looked like, as they have that legacy portion tied to it. It was about the financial and the ability to compete with majority institutions. So you fast forward in 2019 and then we're 2020 and a pandemic hit. And I think what the pandemic has done, it just really further exposed the inequities of our institutions. Things
Okay.
that are already there when you talk about, the lack of, federal and state funding compared to majority institutions, things that were basically causing some of our institutions some major problems. It just really exposed and really showed just how vulnerable some of our institutions are. Now, I'm not saying that our institutions are closing, they're on the brink of closing because of the pandemic, but I think it is something that we have to pay close attention to, and we need to fully understand and engage ourselves in what's happening at our various institutions so that we can become a part of the solution or helping find solutions with the frailties that is existing. When you look at the infrastructure, a lot of our institutions are and our facilities, are older facilities, and
Right.
some of our campuses don't have the infrastructure necessary to sustain during a pandemic. If you think about, the pandemic and how it came along, um, everybody was forced to go to a platform of online learning,
Right. Right.
and that was major. So if you think about some HBCUs that probably were not doing anything in that space, and then you just had to quickly and abruptly, take your platform to online learning, there are a couple of major things that played out. First of all, you're dealing with the shock and awe of it's a pandemic, it's a global pandemic,
Right.
and then you've got to regroup and you've got to refocus your priorities on how are you going to help sustain the rest of the semester with getting your kids online, making sure that they have platforms to, get on to learn, getting your faculty ready, making sure that your students had computers, making certain that they had access to Wi-Fi. So it's really no different than the K through 12 experience,
Right. Because I was going to ask you, how was that? I work at what they call a PUI, predominant undergraduate, but it's a private university. And
Mm-hmm.
all those kids had laptops, and so it was easier for them to make those transitions. And I was curious about, some of the HBCUs. How did they maintain or manage, in your opinion?
Mm-hmm.
Was that a real struggle for the HBCU?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you go back and when you look at the DNA of the student that we serve at,
Got
at,
you.
at our institutions, they're first generation, majority of them are first generation college students. They come from some come from low income
Right.
homes and backgrounds, and just not having access and not having the technology and not having computers. So trying to get the infrastructure together, and get the platform together, that was a big challenge because that cost money. So institutions, HBCUs were forced to actually, look at their budgets and look at, what was available, and donors. Let me say this: we've had donors to step in. There have been large contributions that have been made, grants that have been um, given to HBCUs to help with this infrastructure. But I think that initially, that was something that, you really wasn't prepared for because we didn't see this pandemic coming, and we
Right.
didn't think that we would be off the campus. So I think having the infrastructure of computers for students and making sure there's Wi-Fi access, it's a cost. And if in most HBCUs, if they didn't have the reserves or they didn't have the large endowments, to pull monies from to do these things, it was really taxing to the budget.
Right.
So the bottom line, and it's just the operating cost to make these transitions. So it was definitely a transition that was financially taxing, as well as, I, I like to talk about the morale of the students during
Okay.
that time. And I think what's really important about that is, HBCUs, we are well, we're thriving, we're educating students, and we had a whole class of 2020 that
R-
missed their graduation, that
yes.
did not get the pomp and circumstance that you would get. And so when you think about, HBCUs, we don't just graduate students, we graduate families. And
Right.
so when you have a HBCU graduation, everybody comes to the graduation. So it was just really such a big blow to the morale of the students,
Yeah.
during that time as well too.
Yeah.
You know,
Everybody, grandmama and them,
yes.
everybody had to come to Now, my sister beat me into going to college. I think I beat her because she got married to her husband that was in the army, and they went on to the army, and she didn't graduate. So I'm gonna claim I was the first one who graduated. Gloria.
Okay.
Ha.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
But
Well, I understand that scenario too, because even with your wife, Hope, Hope attended UNCC, but I was the first to attend, being the oldest, and to graduate.
right.
And so I understand that scenario completely. But I think that in reference to the readiness, as we talk about the effects of what COVID-19 had on HBCUs, getting faculty, ready for instruction, that was another, I wanted to mention that because I think that was important. You had some, faculty members that are not maybe comfortable with technology,
Right.
and they're accustomed to in-class instruction, and some faculty members are old school. They still write on whiteboards, so now you're taking them to a platform for instruction, and you have to be creative
Yeah.
on those platforms when you're online. So I think there was just a lot of things, and there was staff. I mean, you work at Work for Ours, you're a
Yeah.
staff member,
Yeah.
so you understand. Trying to keep the campus safe. The president's trying to make and administration trying to make the hard decisions of to close, how to close, making sure that we can conduct business remotely. So
Yes.
it was a big transition for everybody, not just HBCUs. I think it was for everybody, but I think it was harder for HBCUs because of resources.
And I guess that leads me to something. Maybe you can give me a little bit insight, because you said something earlier about not being able to have as many federal dollars. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, is that now this is from ignorance? Is that from the student population getting funds in? How is that? How does that work
Well,
from your vantage point?
sure. Let's talk about it from just how HBCUs are funded.
Okay.
So with publics and privates, so when you look at a public institution, public institutions receive funding from the state level, and they receive federal dollars as well too. So, but if you look at a private, and also private giving, let me put that in there as well too. So you have private giving, you have grants, you have private giving from corporations, foundations, where your grant money comes in, and then
Right.
you have your corporate money that comes in from your corporations, that in turn provides internships, for our students. But then with the privates, it's different. Privates do not receive state support. So that's different, So to have those state dollars come in to your budget makes a big difference. And I'll just give you a scenario. Um, I worked at one public institution that had a yearly budget of $120 million. And then I worked at a private institution that had a budget of $30 million.
Wow.
That's just to show you the variations of the difference with the budgets as it relates to the difference with a public and a private. It's very substantial. So privates, rely on, some federal funding that do come in. And if they are affiliated with religious organizations, monies comes through.
Got you
that
from
way.
that point.
Absolutely. And then it comes from private fundraising. So money's from, again, grants, money's coming from corporations, and of course, private giving from alumni as well. And family and friends.
Now I'm gonna take a turn. How did you get into raising money? You've raised over $25 million. So what made you want to go into that part of your career initially, to be able to raise those funds versus not being a teacher or an instructor or something like that? I mean, is this just you just have the gift to raise money?
Well, I think that I fell in. When I say I fell into it, I started working. I did nonprofit work here in Charlotte before I started working with
Got you.
HBCUs.
Okay.
I sat on several boards. If you read my resume,
Oh, yeah.
I actually served on the board of the United Way of Central Carolinas, where I was actually the chair of the minority committee to raise funds for minorities, for United Way. I actually served on, I worked with the Bobby Fields Foundation. That was a fundraising aspect. So there were things that I had done long before I had gotten into, working with HBCUs. And so I think it was just a natural fit. So
Gotcha.
I actually came into the HBCU space through athletics.
Okay.
So, I'm very passionate about athletics, and I started raising funds, working with the MEAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, who was one of my clients. And so I was doing some actual fundraising and doing sponsorship sales, for the MEAC. And so, and that in turn put me in contact with a lot of the universities, the MEAC schools. So
Got you.
And relationships. So I've been in the fundraising space for a really long time, long before I started working at HBCU.
Got you. But you learned you have such a vast knowledge from from us talking over the years. You have such a vast knowledge of how the workings of how this all works. And so a lot of us, we graduated, but you see it from a different level than we do. And so that's one of the reasons why tonight I wanted to bring Valerie on, because not only does she have a passion for it, but she really is knowledgeable, and she can educate us on what's really happening at the universities that that literally, and I had everybody on here. I wanted to tell you, shoot out and rep your gone, girl. I don't even know where they are. Gone. Bring them up. Gone. You're gonna have to rep your university, and we're gonna flip this tonight, because that's all on what we doing the video on. So we're gonna do it another way. This thing, and so rep your university. We had so much fun with that, and so I've given Val a bunch of questions, and one of these questions is we having to do this opposite. We just gonna have fun like we would if we were at the house and we talking. And I've given her whatever that first question is. Talk to me. What's going on?
Well, we've answered the first question. I mean, we talked about the inequities of the university, of HBCUs. I think we've covered, most of those. But I think one thing that I would like to talk about was a question that you gave me, and that was, HBCUs preparing to bring students back on campus.
Let's talk about it, because that's where I was going to go. Like, what's going on now that you know about, in reference to all of this?
Well, absolutely. HBCUs are doing some of both. They're doing remote learning, so they're giving options. They're giving students the opportunity to do remote learning, and they are doing on campus. So you have students as we speak, and students have been moving into dormitories, and they're actually going onto the campus. So I think there is a combination. There is a combination of things that are going on. So, and I think one of the bigger challenges that HBCUs will have is how will they mitigate the spread of the virus when kids are on the campus, keeping them safe, keeping kids socially distanced. As parents are making decisions to drop their kids off, especially first-time freshmen that are just graduating from high school, that are looking forward to going to college and that first year experience. You and I know what that is and how important that is. But you have a lot of things that are going on right now. And so how are you going to have ongoing monitoring and testing on the campus? And at most HBCUs, you don't have a dorm somewhere sitting to the side like Chapel Hill does, where you can quarantine when cases come up.
Right.
You talked about Chapel Hill earlier. What a mini case study right now.
Yes.
To look at how that is going and anticipate what things will potentially be like on our campuses. Now, we don't have, as on majority of our campuses, we have some large institutions that have large enrollment, but we don't have, at some institutions, we don't have that many kids on campus. So it will be interesting to see how that goes. I know back in July, my alma mater reported some cases with the football team. As the football team came back, as they thought they were going to engage in competition this for the fall semester. That's not going to happen. But there was some cases of COVID, during that time, even on the football team. So I think we're going to see more of it. So it's really a plan. And I know institutions are coming up with plans on how to safely bring the kids back onto the campus. It goes back to funding again and access to testing, being able to get our kids tested on a regular basis, and then being able to quarantine them when cases and clusters break out, on the campus. And I think one thing that I really think is the transition that's being made with how the campus will function with being on the campus. You and I know when you're on the campus, football, sports, basketball games.
Wait a minute. Let's talk about the number one thing. You remember when the band would come out? We talked about this when you watch the band leave and go to the practice. Absolutely. And you stayed out there, and you had people on the and it's not. I guess it's the quad, but they used to be our Greeks. They used to be up there on the. I don't even know what they're called now, but we don't have them. It's not where they were when I went to college.
Right. Absolutely.
And they gonna miss that whole thing with the band and getting down. I missed that. I want to go back now just for that.
Well, but I think but it's about the entire college experience.
It is
everything. So
yeah.
When you think about just lecture series, when you think about community engagement, college campuses.
Yep. Thank you, Camille. The plot.
The plot. Yeah, various events that take place on the campus, the band, the games and all the gatherings. I mean, that is just so embedded in HBCU culture.
Yes.
It is a part of our culture and our DNA, and not to be able to have that, and freshmen that are arriving at school, I just can imagine, how they're feeling,
Yeah.
just because it's almost like there's isolation in this
Certainly.
whole process, because you're trying to administer the social distancing and then and implement the learning. So it's really going to be challenging over the next couple of months to see how this plays out on. But this is what I do believe, and there's no data to support this, but there is a part of me that feel like that possibly you may be able to get this done at a HBCU on a smaller campus where you have less students.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think they stand a chance, but here is the thing with that is with enrollment. Enrollment, graduation, retention and graduation is so important. I don't think I talked about this earlier when we talked about the effects of COVID-19 to HBCUs, and when our kids went home, whether or not they returned to the online platform and whether or not they were coming back. So when you talk about retention, retaining our students, maintaining enrollment, that is so crucial
Right.
to our institutions.
That
And,
is true.
and it's for everybody. Chapel Hill went back, bringing students back on campus. Enrollment is important. That is a big part of your revenue stream is enrollment. So you got to have kids on campus. And so when you take kids off campus, you have lack of housing, you have meal plans
Yep.
that you don't have to have.
Yep.
And there's things that you don't need from a funding standpoint of view with online instruction. And that hurts the bottom line too, as it relates to another thing that has affected, I think, HBCUs and will continue as some parents and students decide that they're going to use the the online platforms.
Yeah, and those, I don't know if they are expensive now, but boy, when I was in college, books was out of this world. I mean,
Absolutely.
and so you're talking about food plan, housing plan, books. You're talking about all the little, the paraphernalia, all of those things. They add up, and so when you don't have that, it is a problem. Do you think enrollment is down?
Well,
Globally, when we start talking about, because I know it may not, what happened at Wake Forest was, I think a lot of kids really did come back, and nobody said anything. They didn't give us, there weren't any alarming numbers that didn't come back, but I
yeah.
don't know what those rates are with our HBCUs, because you're telling the truth about enrollment versus retention. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely, it is. It's one thing to admit a student. It is another thing to retain a student, and
Yeah.
that is our priorities. And then it's another thing to graduate a student
Yeah.
and see our students through 4 years. As opposed to sometimes 6 years, because we look at things at HBCUs on a 6-year graduation rate. Because sometimes it takes our students longer, to graduate from the various disciplines. But I will say this: there's no data that
Right.
says enrollment is down at HBCUs. Enrollment was down before the pandemic hit.
Got you.
Okay.
Okay.
So we were already dealing with enrollment competition, just like, majority institutions are trying to diversify their campus populations by recruiting more students of color, more females, more, everybody's trying to diversify their campuses.
Right.
So therefore, enrollment has been down with HBCUs in terms of educating African Americans for the past 15, 20 years. So that's not anything new for us. So we're in the space of trying to diversify as well too. But if I would feel confident in saying that, if I had to look at it, and again, I want to, clarify this, that there's no data that really says that enrollment is down at HBCUs. But if we would look at the effects of the pandemic and what it is having on the economy,
Yeah.
and how the effect that it's having on our economy, on our jobs, and furloughs are taking place, people are being laid off. That is a real, and that is happening at college campuses too. So that is a real indication that, enrollment very well is down
Right.
at institutions, and it could only be down if you think about it, if you bring so many kids back on a campus and you have to social distance, if you put in one kid to a room,
Yeah,
which I know some campuses are, as opposed to sometimes there's two to a room on most of our campuses. You have a roommate,
that's right.
and some of our institutions who have built nicer facilities and have nicer facilities, kids are able to be in single dorms.
Yeah,
But you in most campuses, it's a roommate situation. So if you put in one to a room, your enrollment down is half right
it's
there.
already half. It's
It's
already at
already half
50%.
with the on-campus experience.
That's
So
right.
you would hope that you would at least get something from the other half of those students by them being remote and being online.
Now, I may not even, this is a lesson for everybody who's doing your podcast. When you become electronic and you don't do all the things, paper really is important. But I do remember two of them questions off of there that I want to talk about because it's important to me. What we gonna do because of homecoming? We got we we got to talk about. Oh Lord, no football, no homecoming. Saints, we gotta, hey, we gotta talk about this. What's going on? Talk to us. And how in the world are we gonna survive with this no football? And because that's our gathering place. That's the place
Absolutely.
that we've done. But I know you have some insight to this thing because you work behind the scenes.
Well, let me say this about COVID-19. COVID didn't discriminate in a lot of ways.
It did not.
It did not discriminate. It actually, as I stated earlier when I started talking, that I think it further exposed our inequities, but it didn't discriminate.
No.
So we all are dealing with the lack of sports and how the NBA is in a bubble and how. But then let's talk about the collegiate. Really they're trying, but it's just not. It just does not seem to be working out.
And that's a major revenue stream, even for your majors, your Big Ten, your Pac-12.
Absolutely.
And I see
Absolutely.
the ACC is still trying to do it, and the SEC is still trying to do it. I'm not sure if they're going to be successful, but I think you told me, shared with me, like MEAC and all of that stuff. Done? Yes.
Yeah. Yes, there is no competition. SWAC, MEAC, so there's no football for the fall. It's not going to happen. So I think when you talk about homecoming being canceled, I think homecoming was canceled before there was a decision made about football, and that had to do with large numbers. If you think about HBCU homecomings and the large crowds and the gatherings, I mean, you just would not be able to have that even if they played a football game with the minimum amount of people in the stadium. I don't know what that would have been.
Right.
But but as it relates to homecoming, I think one of the questions that you asked me about homecoming from a funding standpoint.
Yes. Let's talk
So
about it.
I want to put my development hat on now in what I do in fundraising. And I don't know if you would be surprised to know that homecoming is not even though it's one of the bigger gatherings at HBCUs where everybody come home, it's a reunion. There's a lot of parties. There's a lot of, just a lot of gatherings and homecoming. It's as a vice president for institutional advancement and has worked at many HBCUs, I know it is not a big private giving moment for our institutions.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
And what is a big ticket revenue at a football game is probably the biggest funding opportunities during homecoming at HBCUs because the games sell out. And
Right.
the tickets go fast. I can speak as an Aggie. When those tickets go on sale, they sell out really fast at our stadium, because of homecoming. But then you have just as many people outside of the game as you do inside of the game because of capacity.
That is true.
So and that leads me to the discussion about alumni and what is it that we need to be focused on and what is it that we need to do during this pandemic. No, it's not a homecoming, but I think one of the conversations that my colleagues and I are constantly having is how do we get our alumni more engaged in giving to our universities? That is so important and so critical. And so now you have a pandemic that has come and that discussion is even greater.
Yeah.
How is it that we are going to be sustainable? And one thing, for people that are listening to this podcast, and if you are a HBCU grad, I think some graduates know this, some don't. most graduates from HBCUs may not be affiliated with an alumni chapter, meaning they don't have membership.
Right.
So therefore, their engagement is at a minimum, and it's normally during homecoming. They may come back to homecoming. They may come back to if a part of the Divine Nine. They may come back for their reunion weekend.
Right.
I think we have got to start using the various ways that we are associated with our institutions and turn those into financial support for our institutions. Right. We've got to look at, I would say this, I encourage all alumni to please look at contact your Office of Institutional Advancement at your alma mater. That is the fundraising department at every college and university. The vice president of institutional advancement, which is the roles that I hold, they report to the president. And I think in this time, with the president's and administration's trying to make decisions about what to do in COVID and what the needs are, the priorities are articulated by the president. The vice president knows exactly what those priorities are. And if you were to work with the offices of institutional advancement, they can help guide you in what you need to do to support the priorities, whether it's COVID or whatever else is going on. That's a great way to get yourself engaged. And so I think it's really important that if you don't know how to engage yourself, if you're sitting back thinking, okay, I do need to get engaged, but how do I take that first step? In the Office of Institutional Advancement, if we could have an educational moment, you have the Office of Alumni Relations. At most campuses report under that VP. In my office, you have development, which is the fundraising arm that reports into my office. And that's where you want to be. You want to be able to associate yourself with your alumni director at your institution so that they can help provide you with strategies, and then the fundraising part with strategies as well too on how to give and the best ways to give, and so you can better understand the fundraising priorities for the institution.
Well, we have and I want to challenge those who are listening now and the ones who will pick this up later on. Listen, give me that office again one more time.
It's the Office of Institutional Advancement.
Office of Institutional Advancement. All right. Now we've got to make sure you contact your alumni. And I think it has always been, but do you feel this is even more critical now during this moment of pandemic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is. It is more, it has been critical for it's been on life support, but it's been critical, but it's really on life support now. I think it's really important that alumni, and let me say this about giving back to the institution. Sometimes I think we have to give large amounts of money back to institutions. No, you don't. It's the same strategy that Obama used when he was running for president. He had large donors, of course, but Obama had a lot of small donations.
Right.
And small donations add up. And I want to tell you another thing that I think is really critical with this too. In the fundraising world, when we are asking foundations and corporations to support our institutions, one of the things that they want to know is about alumni giving. What are your alumni doing? We have some very sophisticated, well established and millionaire alums, people
right.
that are coming to our institutions, and they want to know, are they giving back to the institution? So regardless of the amount, if you give to your institution, it helps with the percentage of alumni giving, whether it's $5, $10, $20, $30, $100, $10,000, $100,000, whatever you give, it helps with engagement. It's power in numbers, because if you look at alumni giving across our institutions, it's under 15%.
Wow.
And in some cases under 10.
Wow.
In some cases under 9.
Wow.
So it's so in 9%, that's percentages, and that is really critical. So when corporations and foundations are looking, at us, and in terms of how we're engaged, it's important that we're engaged, so that we can realize a better opportunity with corporations when we're going for corporate dollars and when we're going for some um, foundations for giving as well too. I mean, we have to be at the table, and I think that engagement. That's why I'm encouraging, because what I realize sometimes is that we don't fully understand the infrastructure of the campus and how the campus work and what office does
Right.
what. And that the Office of Institution Advancement is one office that people really don't know about. They don't really. Then there are some
No.
people that do, but a lot of people don't know what that office is and what that office does. That is the fundraising arm of the institution. It's your marketing arm, marketing and communications, and it's your alumni relations, which is very key. And it's your foundation. So if your institution has a foundation, normally the foundations, which is the nonprofit, the 501c part of the institution, is housed in that office as well too, and sometimes Title III funds, which are federal funding.
Hey, look, y'all. She's dropping some real knowledge. This year during the pandemic, one of my mentors from back home, Bruce Stenbeck, said, "What you need to do is all the money you were gonna spend on hotels, parties, and travel, send that to send that to this year. Send that to your school." But what Valerie is saying is, be more consistent in your giving because it helps them when they go. If I'm hearing correctly, when they go to those corporate donors, don't just do it for homecoming this year. Get on a regular schedule, and anybody that you know, let's get on a regular schedule to support our HBCUs because that helps them when they go try to get more dollars from these corporations, which is what we really need. Go ahead, Val. You was going to say
Absolutely.
something.
And you were talking about homecoming, another point to homecoming. When you think about homecoming, and really if you look at homecomings across, the HBCUs, really hotel and tourism, restaurants,
Yeah.
they make a lot of money
Yep.
during that time,
That's right. That's
doing
right.
homecoming. I just think about A&T's homecoming, all the hotels are sold out, the restaurants are packed, people are shopping at the malls because they're buying things. And so, we've got to understand economics when it comes to our institutions, and we've got to look at where we're spending our dollars
Yeah.
and think differently about how we are spending our money and reprioritize, because when you go to your homecoming, that's about your institution.
Right.
It is. It's a level of pride that we all do have, and we're happy to be home and seeing people that we haven't seen in a long time and gathering and having a good time and tailgating. But we got to start leaving money at the institution. We've got to find ways to get engaged, to give back to the institutions. There's nothing, and I know this from firsthand experience, there is just nothing more disheartening in our Office of Institution Advancement to have had a wonderful weekend and a great, no, week's celebration
Yeah,
and a
because we
great
celebrate for the
weekend.
week.
And we're right. And then there's just hundreds of thousands of people. And then when you're looking at those numbers, as it relates to what we raised and what came in and who gave, and it can be disheartening. So we've got to change that narrative, and we've got to think more about talking about the narrative of talking about, how do we get engaged in giving and giving back to the institutions, because that's just really, really important to the sustainability of our institutions.
So let's unpack that. I mean, since we're there, let's talk about what does it take for just a common person to understand. And I know this pandemic probably is making us a little bit more aware of our institution, right? Because we
Right.
can see
Absolutely.
now, ooh,
Absolutely.
if we don't do something, our
Absolutely.
university is hurting. I mean, we
Right.
already know that. I mean, so what can we do, if anything? Well, I know we can do something, but what can we do in your professional opinion? Give me your spiel and to our audience so that we can know what we
Well,
need
I
to do.
think I think what we can do is we've got to give. I think for the old alumni, I think I laid it out about the engagement and the giving. It's just
Yeah.
real important to give back. And I think with younger alums, I would say to them in this time period is vote.
Whoa.
Hey, let me,
Let's hit it.
yeah, we're in some interesting times right now, and we have a generation of kids, working on a college campus keeps you real in the know. So you get to look at the transitions of generations, even with my generation to the millennials to the Gen Zs. What's the new generation? I put the new can't think of the name right now, but it's really they have so much power right now
Yeah.
in getting out and voting. And I would say to them where the experience on campus may not be, and I maybe be speaking to their parents because their parents could be listening, and it's
Yeah.
their children that's being dropped off at these institutions, for their first college experience. But I think they've got to vote. I think it's important to vote and really you be because policy really affects our institutions. So
Yes.
you're talking about policy in DC, when you're talking about policy at the state and local level, all of those decisions that happens in the space of education affects our institutions.
Yeah.
So you have to understand um, where the policy is being made, who's influencing the policy, what are the policies as it relates to HBCUs,
Yeah.
and you have to educate yourself. So I think it's real important to be knowledgeable of, two powerful organizations that we have that supports our institutions, and that would be the United Negro College Fund, which basically provides support to a lot of the smaller private institutions, and then you have Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund, who provides support and raises dollars and awareness for most of the public institutions. And
Now,
there is some crossing in those organizations, but that's how they're set up. It's really important to understand how they function because a lot of decisions and things that get done and get made in the space of policy sometimes filters through those organizations on behalf of our institutions.
now let's go back because you had talked to me about Thurgood Marshall and something about the virtual tailgating, something that you wanted to make sure that we brought
Oh
up.
yeah,
We want to
so
make
you're
sure.
really concerned about homecoming. You got
Well, well. The only reason why is because I think for us that has been the culmination. You get to go back, you get to go see your friends, you get to go, and that to me, because a lot of people when they 20, 10, 20, 30 years removed from their HBCU, if you are not in your city or your local city, what happens is you gravitate during that time, and that's what triggers a whole lot of memories, da da da. And so we've got to be able to talk to our audience because I think that's the trigger point. I don't even know if people talk about their HBCU like in December, January, they forget all
right,
about that. And I think it is crucial that we maximize this moment because the
right.
pandemic, we need to be sensitive. I'm gonna have to call them tomorrow. Lord Jesus, I'm gonna have to call them tomorrow and take some Hope money out and give
Absolutely,
to the Office of
absolutely.
Institutional Advancement. I'm gonna have
You
to
need to
do
call
that.
the offices.
It- you know,
Absolutely.
we we're gonna have to
You need to
take.
know what's going on at Winston. And I think it's important for us to know. I mean, social media provides us platforms to stay engaged and to keep up with what's going on at our institution. So I really would encourage alumni not only to give, but also if you're not following the Instagram or either Facebook of your institution,
Good
kind of
job.
follow the platform so you'll know what's going on because they're doing a very good job of keeping you abreast of what's going on at the institution. So you need to really follow those platforms so that you can know what's happening with your schools. And sometimes you also will able to give you information on how to give because giving opportunities are there as well too. But as it relates to homecoming, Thurgood Marshall is partnering with, and I want to say this right. I think it's HBCU Pride Nation. You can follow them on Instagram, and they are working on a virtual homecoming to bring all HBCUs together for a big virtual homecoming experience. I think it's the tailgating, it's also the bands. It's the stomp and shake, the stuff that we are accustomed to seeing,
Right.
doing football. So they're trying to bring all of that into a virtual experience that's going to be taking place in October. I'll get you that information, more information about that, so that you can announce that on another podcast.
Good deal.
I'm sorry I don't have it right now, but
No.
I think it's something that people would want to know about so that they can participate, in the HBCU experience. And it would be a form of homecoming. It would just be virtual. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. How can the church, and we all over the place, and I don't, thank you so much. You are an excellent, I would not want this to happen with anybody other than you. Um,
Thank you.
uh, but how can the church help during this particular time? And I know that the churches are not there. I saw that in North Carolina, the governor did not open bars and stuff like that. So we still at what, phase two?
Phase
We
two, right?
we still at phase two, and so we're still not gathering. But there are, like in the ministry that I am a part of, there are some alum, and I'm going to get on the platform and talk about that as a result of talking to you. But how can other churches and how can other, or not just churches, sororities, fraternities, any of those organizations be able to help? Let's talk about that and put that in the forefront for those who are out here listening.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one thing that I have to, and when I'm asked about organizations and how people organize and how people give, I'm a Delta, but I have to always give much respect to Alpha Kappa Alpha for the HBCU initiative that they started over about a year ago, where they actually are raising money for HBCUs, and they have been so successful and raised, I think it was over $1 million in one day when they started the campaign
Wow.
specifically for HBCUs, and they were able to take that money, and a couple of institutions that I worked at were actually recipients of some of those funds, but also they were able to take some of the funding and set up endowments. Endowments are important. So
Yeah.
when you call your Office of Institutional Advancement and talk to the folks that are the experts in this, you'll learn more and you'll understand how things are set up. But just them coming together, I would love to see Delta Sigma Theta do something like that. All the Greek organizations organize at that level where they are really looking at all of their chapters and all of their regions to get together and raise money for the HBCUs in that region. And then if you don't have one in your state, or you don't have a HBCU, you still can partner with maybe a neighboring state or city to be a part of that campaign. And that's really just effort. That's really someone saying, okay, we're going to raise money. And there are monies that do come into historically Black colleges from the other organizations, but they leveraged their power in numbers, which I thought was impressive. And they spread it out and made it a national initiative. And when they did that, they really were able to raise substantial dollars, for HBCUs. And I think every organization can do that. Right now, as you stated about the churches, we're in phase two. So churches are not meeting, and I'm pretty sure as you being a pastor, you understand what that means to
Yeah.
the offering on Sundays and the bottom line with churches.
Certainly.
But for those churches that have reserves and have monies that they can contribute, and they're really not financially taxed during this campaign, I mean during this pandemic, they can give to the institution that's of interest or in their city or wherever. I think that's just something that should be ongoing. There are some institutions, the Office of Institutional Advancement, they do church Sundays where they go around and they travel to various churches, and it's HBCU Sunday. They'll take the football team. I know when I was at Winston, we did things like that. The football team, a problem, another problem with not having students on campus and not being fully engaged,
Yeah.
is the things that you have to sell for your institution is not at your disposal, and that changes my world, that changes our world. And fundraising, you don't have kids, taking the football team to church, taking the basketball team to church,
Right.
or taking a group of kids to sit down and talk to corporations and be face to face and hands on with our students so that they can see talent that we are educating and producing, or even be able to maybe just understand the need a little better. It's not there right now in the pandemic. So that's another, effect. There's so many effects, but that just kind of another one that came to mind. But I think that organizations and churches, they can just give to your institution. It just, just sending a check, writing a check, collectively getting together in small groups and, coming up with monies, setting monies aside and giving, weekly, monthly. And this is another thing. I need to say this. I did think about this last night, is that when I talk about corporations, if you work for a corporation, you probably have a matching gift program at your institution. Okay. So for every dollar that you give to the institution, it will be matched by your corporation. So if you're out there and if you don't know about your matching gift program, there are some alums that do, but that's another area where I realized we could see more revenue coming into our institutions is through the matching gift program. So that's why it's important, I say, to contact your Office of Institutional Advancement and understand what the priorities are, and they'll be more versed in speaking with you about ways to give to the university, because there are ways, in this philanthropic game for you to give. People are, through wills, bequests, land, houses. There's just so many different ways you can give, to an institution. So sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be stroking a check, at the moment. I think planned giving is real important, because we never think about putting our institutions in our wills.
Right.
African Americans, death is something hard to sometimes think about, talk about, and plan for. But thinking about planned giving, it's real important, and I think that's an opportunity that we could grow us into as well too. Is with planned giving.
You won't believe it. I mean, we started a little late, but you won't believe that like our time is done.
Oh, it is.
Isn't that amazing? And we haven't even scratched the surface of the things that are necessary for us to kind of talk about. And I hate that all of this glitch happened tonight, because the knowledge that you're spitting out for us to be able to do, we're getting ready to capsulize this, because Valerie, and I've been trying to pull up her bio. It is just absolutely so impressive. It is so phenomenal. It is she has done and is doing some great work at all levels. Whatever she touched, she is like on top of the game, and such an inspiration for me to be able to see and be infused into this family, to see somebody is actually hustling and making it happen, not only for herself, but she's actually doing it on all kinds of levels. I mean, with her sorority, she helps all kinds of foundations, her knowledge base, universities. She talked, I mean, if I could post it, I might just post it, because what she has done is absolutely phenomenal in these little short years that she's been on this earth. I am extremely proud to not only have you as my sister-in-law, but to have you as my sister, and not only just in that capacity, but just as an African-American sister who's getting it done. And I want you to make sure you stay encouraged, and I need you to keep pressing to be the president and do what you do. You have people who's looking at you and your mentorship. One of the things I want to do is give you the opportunity. We know, we know what we've got to do in this particular situation is whatever your HBCU is. the way Valerie has talked to us, we've got to contact our Office of Institutional Advancement, and we've got to set up a thing where we're consistently just make it like a little bill, just make it like a bill, and let it come on out. You know, treat it like Sprint, like I do with Sprint. Just make to the bill.
Absolutely.
And,
But this
and
is a good time. You know, this is actually a good time to get that homecoming money. It's not going to be a homecoming this year. So you will not have that homecoming expense of 4 or 5 nights in a hotel, which is
yes,
very costly. You know, you're not going to have that food bill where you're eating out and enjoying, the various activities. You don't have to buy the game ticket this year. So, if you think about what you would spend at homecoming, it would really be nice to take those monies that you would spend at your homecoming, which is coming up because homecoming season is coming up.
that's right.
So it would take those monies and write that check to your alma mater. And if you did not graduate from a historically black college and university, I know many people that did not graduate from an HBCU, but they've adopted a HBCU that
Right.
they support. And so I think that is a way to give back to the institution, and like you said, you can just make it a priority, something that you do weekly or you do monthly, to, give to the institution. I just think you can do a direct deposit into institution advancement monthly, weekly, or you can write it in or whatever, just making sure that you're doing something to support. Um, I know that you stated that you wanted to give me, some final words before we end.
You got it. The floor is yours.
Yeah, let me
Talk
say
to
this.
us.
Um, I believe that HBCUs, we have been in existence for a very long time. We have seen struggles, we have overcome struggles, and I believe that in even though this pandemic seems like it has an adverse effect on our institutions as it relates to infrastructure and finances, but I believe that we will come out stronger. I believe that we will come out even better. I believe that God's plan for historically black colleges and universities will continue to manifest itself in how we provide an opportunity for people like you and me who attended HBCUs and other kids in the population that we serve. I believe that we'll be around another 125 years to do that. I'm excited about that. I think that there are a lot of great people that are on the battlefield on behalf of our institutions that work at the policy level, who's working in the administration, our presidents, our VPs, our faculty, our staff, people that show up every day. We don't call these jobs, we call these labors of love. So if you work at a HBCU, you'll hear that quite often, that working at an HBCU is mission work and it's a labor of love, because you have to love the institutions to do this. So I'm excited. I just want any parents that are listening, that is, having some anxiety about dropping your child off at the institution, during these unprecedented times. I just be encouraged and make good decisions about, the environment, and when you leaving your child, at the institution, and making sure that you understand, who to contact, who to be in touch with, to make certain that your child is safe. And I know that our institutions are doing everything that they can do to make sure that we're providing a safe environment for our kids, because we understand that HBCU experience is more than just you showing up. It's a family experience, and I think our students benefit from the HBCU experience in so many ways. And so we want to make certain that we can do all that we can do to keep that a part of, their educational experience, even during this pandemic. So I am prayerful, hopeful, and I'm just grateful that we had an opportunity to chat and to talk about
Yeah.
HBCUs. And I would love to come back again, where we can talk more, about what's happening and updates on what's going on as it relates to the pandemic, and see how the fall goes. We're getting ready to go into the fall semester, and I think it's trial and error for a lot of schools and our schools, but I think we will strive, we will thrive, and I think we'll come out on top. I just believe that. And
It,
so,
we are definitely products of it, and it taught us how to survive and thrive and strive, and so it is absolutely a wonderful experience. I appreciate you in all of this electronic stuff that did not work. We were really prepared. We really were. But I think it was, you dropped some serious knowledge on us, for us. And there's no way for us to be able to get to all of it, but I appreciate you. I want to tell you right now publicly, love you. Thank you for all that you're doing. Keep pressing, keep moving. And this is Valerie Melton, VP. She going to be a president one day of somebody's school. And y'all going to ask me, can your child get in? And I'm going to say, go to your Office of Institutional Advancement. Pay some. No, I'm just joking.
that's Office of Admissions. That again, you got to do the admissions process.
All right. Listen, we going out off of this. Y'all know how we do it. I done found another little song that I did. We just going to go out this way. And Val and I going to get off of Facebook Live. And once we get off of Facebook Live, if this allow me, and it won't even let us do it, but I just want you to know, you all stay encouraged, and watch him do what he's gonna do for us, because the God we serve, he can handle everything. He's in control. This one of them other songs, Val, that I did at the house. Listen, until next week, hopefully we won't have all these technical things, but I want to thank y'all so much. Support your HBCU, rep it, and watch God do some great things. Y'all be encouraged. Give, and watch him handle it. He can handle everything with your help. Until the next time, this is Stephen Williams. They call me the Good Bishop. We signing off. See y'all next time. Bye-bye.